The interpreters can follow me. Could you please confirm the people who are on Zoom, if you can read us quite well, could you please write on the chat, or could you please otherwise notify? Dear friends, dear colleagues, with a small delay, we shall start. My name is Andriy Martinyuk. I'm head of the civic organization Ecoclub, who is very happy that today we could bring together the supporters who, in every parallel way, are moving forward the modern Ukraine towards the green future. The green one, from the perspective of the energy and generally the environmental protection. It looks like generally in the world there is a global consensus, at least among the high-level officials and politicians, that rebuilding Ukraine will be green in a sense of environmental protection. One of the key aspects of that green restructuring, that we have to build Ukraine better, to build back better and also greener, is also the matter of energy. The energy is and was one of the main reason of climate change. So we have a disaster in the form of the war. Worldwide, people are concerned by climate change. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, they recorded the next temperature record on the Earth. It's logical that indeed we build Ukraine, that it becomes better. And for all the people who will live in the territory of our country, that it is comfortable, at the same time preserves and protects the environment, including the climate. I would like to remind you that before the war, before the full-scale invasion, one of the most important reform that was implemented in Ukraine, this was recognized by European Parliament, was the reform of decentralization. When the resources, the authority and the commitments to a large extent were shifted from central government to the local governments. My personal feeling was that this was the basic reform which fully changed the further trajectory of development of our country by forming the communities. I don't know if they are perfect, yet the movement has begun towards such communities that take care of the citizens as well as take care of the country, and also organize the life in their communities the way they like. We can see that this green restoration at the level of communities already began. It will not begin at some point in the future, I hope in the nearby future, when we shall win in the war. And it lasts already. It goes on already. And the reason of that, ironically, were Russian missile strikes that have caused lengthy disconnections of power supply and other distractions, which in their turn have forced the people, of course, to buy power generators that we saw everywhere. And still we can see it, and also looking into the alternatives. Of course, this is energy efficiency, renewable energy sources. If you compare the full cost of power from the solar panels, the cost of electricity is at least several times less than the electricity from the diesel generator. If to honestly count all of the expenses that emerge during the operation of such competing or mutually complementing technologies. The Ecoclub is proud and glad that to some extent we are involved in the green restoration in the community which began. On this first session that I have the honor to hold, we shall do our best to discuss what are the terms and conditions. Right now, what is happening in the communities and what the state and the municipalities and the local authorities are doing, what else they could do, and what shall we think about right now, that after the victory, this green restoration becomes fast, and also towards improvement of people's well-being, and also reduction of the influence on the environment and preservation of the environment. Therefore, I have the honor to welcome our distinguished speakers, Mr. Yuri Shafarenko, Director of the Directorate for Economic Policy of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Yulia Sabatyuk, Head of the Supervisory Board of the Energy Efficiency Fund of Ukraine, Olena Lenska, Director of the Department of Development of Renewable Energy of the State Energy Efficiency Agency, Alexander Lysenko, the Mayor of the city of Sumy, and we have installed the solar farm the previous week, and Mr. Borovets, the Mayor of the Vyagel city, where we installed the solar farm in December and continue to cooperate fruitfully. Honestly speaking, we had a discussion how to best organize this discussion. Maybe individual questions for everyone based on the specialization of everybody's activity. I have taken the arbitrary decision. Why don't we all try to answer the same question? Where, from the perspective of your professional activity and your experience and your current tasks, where do you see such points of growth right now that I have quoted, and what to do right away, and what to think about after the victory by laying down the basis? We have taken approved another law with net billing and many other things. I will be grateful if you share with me your ideas and your thoughts and your fears and your ideas. Generally, I kindly request you to speak not what is expected, but to say what you really think. Actually, we have the circle of supporters. It's not necessary to discuss the general things. Just answer this question. Make your proposals, make your concerns from your perspective. Shall we start starting from Olena? Good morning. I'm happy to be here today among the supporters, the professionals. Indeed, the last year was difficult from the perspective of the energy. We know what happened, and we know that ahead of us there is another winter. Most probably it will be as severe from the perspective of the trials and our preparedness to overcome the challenges. Indeed, we need to revise that, and there is a revision of the approaches towards energy security. We all understood for the last year that neither diesel power generators nor gasoline power generators are the way out. Not only from the perspective of the golden cost of electricity, also from the perspective that we have to press all that. Of course, we shall not stay under our vehicles to press the exhaust gases. We understand that the diesel power generator next our winter is the same. People suffocate, people get sick, not in 10 years, immediately in a week after pressing those vapors. Therefore, the way out must be found. We are going to Europe, we are fighting for it, we aspire for it. European and global values for us are not just words. Decarbonization, energy efficiency, increase of the renewable sources. This is what we aspire for, and we aspire for the better future for our children and grandchildren. Therefore, another question of greenness, decarbonization, this is not just a matter of enhancement of political image for Ukraine and fulfillment of objectives. This is a matter for economic competitiveness of our economy, because neither the dirty energy nor the dirty goods are not needed for Europe anymore. There is no exception for us. The year 2025, when the CPAM is introduced, the border tax for emissions, no goods. Of course, there will be the heavy metallurgy, electrical goods, followed by the other goods, and they will never arrive in Europe if they are dirty. They will, but one will have to pay the tax for emission, and this will not be feasible. What to do? At the same time, the challenges about restoring of our power system, energy system, everybody inclines, I believe this is a final decision, that to renew the energy system is necessary by the principle of decentralization, of small distributed power generation. And first of all, this is not just the enhancement of security during the enemy attacks, also flexibility and also reduction of costs for the energy efficiency, because consumption and production are nearby in the close proximity. Also the opportunity to use renewable sources and local fuels. We already have certain percentage of prosumers. Those are the consumers who also produce electricity. Please imagine 10% of all of the electricity from the renewable sources is produced by the households. That's only what is supplied into the grid, and they produce much more. This is just what they supply. And this is 52,000 households in the beginning of this year who have installed the solar panel. 10% of the entire electricity from the renewable sources. Even during the war, the number of such households increases. Nowadays, the draft law was approved 9011D, which increases their class of prosumers. Now the companies will be able, using the billing mechanism, to install the solar panel, to sell the excessive power at market price into the grid, into the system, to balance. We shall also discuss it better to answer the questions, and so on. Also, I would like to draw your attention to such an aspect as small cogeneration. This is very popular, and this direction develops in Europe. This is production of heat and electricity on cogeneration plants. We have approved the law on development of highly efficient cogeneration. By the way, all the small machines up to 1 megawatt cogeneration are highly efficient, those that have to be installed, because they produce heat and electricity at disconnections. They generate power for their own needs by providing the heat. Because in winter, what was the problem? That the thermal power plant, during the blackout with no electricity, also thermal power plant disconnects 3 to 5 to 6 hours with no heat. The system is frozen, and the consequences can be irreversible. Such cogeneration plant, those are just few examples. Heating pumps is important. Energy efficiency is 3 to 5 times. We produce more power than we use. This is also the use of renewable sources. The electricity is used 1 megawatt hour, and thermal power is 3 to 5 megawatt hours. Quite a lot of savings. And finally, very focused also to develop post-war restoration of the regions must be comprehensive. One of such solutions can be creating the bioenergy clusters, using the entire potential of the regions, using local fuels, alternative sources of energy, the entire infrastructure, and not only So they produce plants, the residuals go for energy, auxiliary products, waste processing plants. We have examples, indeed, of the energy holdings where the agricultural farms and electricity auxiliary farms and the plants develop in the synergy by fully providing the region with everything needed. I believe this deserves attention. I will not steal the bread from my colleagues. I will be happy to answer the questions, and I also like the discussions. Thank you. Thank you very much for observing our time limits. And now, Yuri, you have the floor. Good morning. Actually, for the power sector and renewable power, one can speak a lot because I was involved in that matter since 2014. And to me, probably this is the sense of my life. Maybe this is way too pathetic, yet I believe that the renewable sources of energy and that domain is the energy frontline, which actually harms our enemy, because we know by which the economy of our enemy is sustained. As soon as we develop this direction, we shall destroy their budget because it is maintained on the traditional fuels. Therefore, this trend for Ukraine is important from the perspective of energy independence. It's also important because we do not give the opportunity to influence for such empires who possess energy sources worldwide. It's also important that renewable energy in Ukraine develops for a long time, though we are lagging behind from Europe. At the same time, I believe that in Ukraine that sphere is quite mature, and by this draft legislation quoted by Olena, which was signed by the parliament and was submitted to the president for signature, and we are now working on it to make sure the president will sign. I believe he will soon have it signed. Actually, it gave a diploma to that sphere, and that sphere can have a fully fledged life and carry out the sales of electric power, thermal power, and other sources generated directly from the renewable sources. I was preparing for this as I arrived, and I looked what is the condition of development of that sector today. About 10 gigawatts in Ukraine as of 1st January 2023 was built, of which about 6,400 are solar industrial large solar power plants. More than 1,400 megawatt. Those are households. About 52,000 households who have installed the solar power plants, the wind power plants, more than 700 megawatt biomass, 300, and small hydropower plants, about 100 megawatt. In that sector, about 9.3 billion euro was invested. So the war lasts for more than 1.5 years. If to take the statistics of 2022, we can see that also the renewable sources have developed. In 2022, they have introduced 16 megawatt of solar power plants, 206 megawatt of the households have built 82 megawatts, and biopower and micro hydropower plants. Even in the year 2023, they have built the windmill of the capacity 114 megawatts, Silibulska wind power plant. I took part in the commissioning. It's not far from the front line, yet the investor decided and has also built. This is a good sign that so there is a war, that sphere still develops. As far as the prospects are concerned, as well as the directions for the other, not just solar, we understand that this sphere is well diversified for the last years. Maybe you hear it. We discussed actively biomethane. This also gives the opportunity for us to be energy independent. Biomethane base features corresponds to natural gas. And this is a resource from Ukraine depends on. Luckily, however, the potential of production of biomethane may fully cover the entire imports that we have. By assessment of Bioenergy Association of Ukraine, this is about 21 BCM of gas. Also, production of energy crops, the potential 20 BCM per year. Also, there are successful cases, energy clusters, where investor prepares power generation on solid biofuel. Next to them, they have plantations for energy crops, and every 2 years, they are harvesting the energy crops and using for power generation, like the thermal power plant. As far as biomethane is concerned, there are a lot of discussion about its cost. I will tell you an interesting case. In 2017, with Ukraine's delegation, I went to Navarro plant producing biomethane in Germany. At that moment, the cost of biomethane was $700 per 1,000 cubic meters. With that, they bought and imported for 450 or 500. My question was, why do you produce for 700 if you can buy for 450 to 500? Very simple answer, which was good for the interest of the state. The dollars that they pay to the domestic producer of biomethane, if the budget creates $3, and the dollars they pay for the imports, it was minus $1 in the budget and remains like that. Therefore, it's better to pay more to the domestic ones rather than buying cheaper from someone else. I believe we need to understand that, because in the future this will create the jobs. This is a good multiplier which will enable our economy to operate more successfully. As far as the prospects are concerned, more far-looking prospects, I believe hydrogen is an important technology. Possibly not today or tomorrow, but anyway, that technology, as I believe, will become the leading one. This will give an opportunity to develop more actively for all of those directions. And the main thing, it has a good feature of balancing the energy system. We understand that solar and wind depend on the weather conditions, and hydrogen might participate in the balancing in case when there is sunshine, the power can be converted into hydrogen. When energy is needed, there is no sun or wind, that power from hydrogen again may be converted into electric power. And briefly about the draft law, you probably heard of it, 9011D, which makes a new impulse to renewable sources. I believe it's a correct one, it's necessary one.
I do trust and hope that it will be implemented effectively in Ukraine and will work quite efficiently in this country. The contract has guarantees for the nature of this proceeds, that's tax at the border, that can be diminished or it can be elicited. Besides, renewables can enter the market and sell the electricity generated. The auctions are set out in the law. And what's the most important is that there will be clean billing when enterprises, the facilitators, are empowered to set up solar panels or other renewable sources in their capacities. When they have excess generation of electricity, so they sell this electricity into the grid. If there is, let's say, some deficit of electricity, they can take it from the grid as well. So I guess that the renewables can develop further on, and enterprises can be independent. And these enterprises, as I trust it, so can be more competitive by using renewables. And I believe that in the future we will have more discussions and we will have more opportunities of exchange. If you have some good ideas of how to improve the current state of things, renewables in this country, and if you know some new approaches to generating of electricity, you can send us proposals, and our committees will look into them and will take proper decisions on them. Thank you very much. So why do we at present invest in renewables, and why is it not worthy? Why is it worthy to invest into renewables? Why to pay our employees for that? Why to focus on investment into renewables? When we invest into renewables, we invest into development. When you buy gas from the Northern Sea, then you will see investment into some other people, etc. I believe that this understanding will be, so to speak, disseminated further on, and one of the fundamentals explaining why Ukraine wins already is the proof of the current talk that witnesses that Ukraine goes further. And today we argue, we plan together, and this is a wonderful moment when we share our forthcoming prospects. And in the background of the relations with Russia, which build up their activities being followed by the vision of the 15th century or something, keep astray from the current developments. And Ukraine, in contrast to that, seems to be quite a modern state. Could you please explain us the current state of things with the housings, and the foundation today, as I am informed, will issue new financing for new challenges, and what is the most difficult thing in these hardships, the background of the war? Hello everyone, I am indeed very grateful to have been invited to this event. To be true, energy efficiency and my journey with energy efficiency started with 2014, and when there was some alert of risk, there was also some fear of destroying housing. The majority today do believe that there is no need in setting up energy efficiency equipment to save on the utilities. That is the reason why I, for instance, took part in implementing in the decree of 111/111, and the action that the ministry supported at that time gave us an opportunity to see the thermal modernization in the residential sector. For the foundation, I would like to say that it's quite an open understanding. It's a sort of high benchmark, and we have a number of programs that's first of all, measures on energy efficiency and raising of the efficacy. The foundation issues grants to stakeholders, and having an understanding that the war progresses, I guess that the majority of you suffered some agitation and feeling of being lost, at least for a couple of days when the war began. And there was some hard understanding of how another state could attack our country, and this country could have been occupied. So after seeing the number of ruined housings and premises, there was a new initiative, New House, that's quite successful today in a number of regions, but I yet believe that it will be spread all across the country. And today we feel missing some communication from our ministry. That's one of our stakeholders on the Ukrainian part, that earmarked funds will be used for recovery of Ukraine, and I was assured that by the 20th of July we will receive this communication, and the recovery program for Ukraine will be expanded for other regions of Ukraine as well. Alongside with that, I would like to make an announcement saying that yesterday the supervisory board of the ministry announced also the energy efficiency package, Energolite. It implies faster proceedings in testing energy efficiency is focused on setting up an individual heating station, and the procedures of that are much faster. And I believe that the key equipment that saves for its owners funding available is the capacities that allow to balance the current loads. And yes, I can say it fairly well that tomorrow we will have publication of this energy package. Proposals will be received not only for this from those beneficiaries which have already tested the system, and that we had sort of delays since they had some problems at let's say mountain stage, and they needed to leave the program. And today we can open the door to new co-owners of housings for the new measures to come into play and be implemented. For the announcements that I wanted to make, I would like to say that we have started admission to the Consultancy Council today, and that I would like to call upon everyone to take part in it, since these people who do understand the energy efficiency and their relation to the Energy Efficiency Foundation will make it possible to implement the novelty as of the program that exists. That's why I trusted that together with us we will be able to spell out all the mechanisms properly, and we will be able to give our co-owners to the houses not only an opportunity of joining in private houses to set up renewables which will secure comfortable living, since when blackouts are observed in private sector, there is an understanding that when there is a boiler and pumps which do not work, we have nothing to hope for. And I thank the God for a warm winter, and to say goodbye, let's say, to a variety of carriers is no way out. And this makes us think twice about the idea of a clean house, where there will be possibility to set up alternative energy resources and pumps to pump electricity into the grid. For the common purpose, it's clear that we need to get separated from Russia and get split from a crazy marathon when Russia explicitly shows how it wanted to occupy Ukraine, and this wish was a long-lasting one. So for today we aim at targeting private houses, and we can also look into such an option as setting up heating pumps and or alternatives at houses in the residential sector. For proposals, you can submit them through DIA. Well, there is a belief that the procedure will be faster and the people will submit their applications fast. That is the reason why one of the fundamentals for financing, while understanding of this mechanism, is counting on the foundation that will issue a grant of 70% that will be issued in two tranches. The first tranche will make 30% and respectively after the household or another beneficiary once the program admits application of a participant, and after the acts are executed and the equipment is submitted for verification and the procedures are over, and after that households will get to their account that will be opened with the bank that is a partner to our foundation, the following tranche starting with 70%. These are the ideas that we exchange, and payback has been already calculated, since there is understanding that the equipment is very expensive, and without grants no household and no common citizen from grassroots will be able to do it. That is the reason why we looked into 70% as the amount of grant for purchase of equipment. And this means that the payback should amount to far not than beyond 10 years. And we do want to be useful for you and for your NGO. And we do believe in engaging stakeholders and more participants at the stage of discussing the program. That is the case at the moment, and Ukraine, as well as the government of Germany, alongside with the EU, have already agreed preliminary all of these proceedings. And you should understand that the Foundation for Energy Efficiency is a source of guarantees to the EU and Germany that all the commitments undertaken will be carried out properly. And as Elena said it, when the winter came, it was hard to breathe. It was sort of some air that was a result of explosions. Well, our country should be clean, and we should breathe pure air. Thank you. The Foundation for Energy Efficiency, before the beginning of the wide-scale invasion, has won its recognition in helping the housing sector in cutting down consumption. And we are happy to welcome such an active activities, such activities as such an active a movement towards green Ukraine, and that is absolutely necessary. Taken that a couple of weeks ago in London, there was a conference dedicated to the recovery of Ukraine and investment aimed at recovery of Ukraine and channeling the money into the recovery of this state. So at that time, very happy to pass on to our long-term partners, mayors of the Ukrainian cities. One of them is situated in the east, another one in the west of the country. And on the whole, the question is, what makes you make such decisions? It's clear when it goes about amounts. The Zwegel that was attacked quite recently, where a couple of buildings suffered and they were ruined nearly completely. And it's very hard to communicate in simple words while speaking to the local citizens when they suffer the air alerts and can see with their eyes how people perish in front of them. And please tell us, how do you see channeling money for the future development under the circumstances? Thank you for such an opportunity. Hello everyone who is present with us today. It's very good that you said that every day and for always, for all times, so we do face some risk. And when it gets about risk by the border, meaning reckless attacks, they are spread all across the country, and we should think about how people, without any fear for the future of the country, since we have some proper understanding of what has to be done, and that we share the same idea, the same thought for the victory of Ukraine. And I would like to explain today why I came here to join you. There were a number of reasons to that. The thing is, when I was stopped at the checkpoint, they told me that I am on their database, and they told me that when asked about my plans, I witnessed that there was some plan to go abroad, but I didn't leave. I said no to such an invitation to go abroad. And the thing is, before someone promised me to have some talk in England, but I didn't have such an opportunity to see all the stakeholders and discuss the current state of things. So for that I would like to extend my gratitude to the Foundation for Energy Efficiency to have such an opportunity to see each of you here, and that I would like to recall the times when in 2015 I was the mayor, and you looked into the alternatives of the energy resources, and by 30% right then, while introducing renewables into our grid, we managed to achieve the targets, and that was just the beginning back in 2012, and yet then we understood that the gas from the east of Ukraine was finally the only exit to the gas consumption problem across the country, and that I would like to say thank you that what we started yet proceeds, and let's say when I look into what we initiated, it's indeed incredible as an achievement to see that there is recovery of billions, where in the times of war, life of each person is a treasure. And I would like to extend the gratitude to everyone in this circle, saying that your initiative and your resources help us in these difficult times, since all the projects and initiatives which we carry out today could have been put into life yesterday. And that we determine facilities, geography of these facilities, and we define the notion of renewables as such. It's not only about primarily saving money or economy of costs, it's also about security and ecology. For security, I do not think that it is worthwhile mentioning that it is the third day on end where there was a large-scale invasion, and on the 3rd of March we experienced missile attack, and the 14th substation was hit. That was the biggest electricity substation in our locality, and for 3 days the blackout lasted, and the entire town was nearly blown up. I mean, the noise was there, and we dragged out water from meaning underground resources, and the administration with all these resources is very complicated. For hospitals, they were supplied with the resources of one generator that secured not only operations but also to have lighting all across hospital wards, and that was indeed quite secure when we used what we had in place at that time. Today we implement together with the global community, bringing to life a number of international projects. Yesterday we completed a project based on a hospital in our locality, and 52% or even 60% of saved money per day can be established while metering the consumption count. When we have 500, let's say, per half a year, and 400 yet is an indicator for payback. And today we intend to introduce trams across our town, and Electrotrans, that's a municipal enterprise where we want 6.5 kilowatts as the capacity installed for this facility. 6.5 megawatt is our plan. That's where we are going forward, and we do trust that it's something that's worth it to do. This is all about the security, and in our city we have switched our thermal station, having 3,000 to the coal anthracite. That was the Ukrainian resource, for not the one exported from Poland, and I believe that this is a way to resolve the problem, and I trusted that we should use these resources which are ranked as renewables, since we have proper understanding that the enemy will not leave us independent even if we win, after we win. That is the reason why we should go forward in this direction. Why I came here and wanted to have a talk to the Foundation for Energy Efficiency. This is indeed very important to us. And when we come to recovery and setting up of heating stations, that's all about activities of people. When they see these activities, they become even more proactive, and they can observe the results, and today they can be even interested in setting up solar panels on the roofing of their houses, and we should go forward in this direction. That's just this introductory. Thank you. Thank you. You would like to comment on that, right? Anything to add? Dear friends, greetings. I'm Mykola Borovets. I'm a city mayor of Zvergal city. Just for brief introduction, this is a city between Zhytomyr and Lviv, Zhytomyr and Kiev, Kiev and Lviv. That's where we have a general public that amounts to 50,000 and the length of 212 kilometers. And among the self-government authorities we have the city council, and that I would like to start saying that we're driven with the motivation to take part in all of these projects and agendas that we raise today. First of all, I would like to extend gratitude for an invitation to be present today. I am indeed very glad that an NGO today organizes and facilitates to unveiling the agenda for the municipal stakeholders, and alongside with me there is a number of other municipalities present. So Mr. Germanich today with us, T and others do take care of the development of this concept and settlement of the issues related to this agenda. That's indeed a big pleasure, and that I would like to say that at the background of this agenda I would like to thank to the NGO Ecoclub for having organized this event, and me as a skepticist in this respect. You have convinced me in the progress of all the initiations that we started. And when Andrei, you asked me why, what and what, where actually we do something in this respect. So while thinking over your question, I have already articulated an answer saying that the task or the ratio 3E, that's economy, energy and ecology. I label it as 3E EU, where we should move towards, and that's the fruit of all the liberations that we have gained. Today with us we have Yuri, that is our partner in commencing this work, and it's indeed crucial at any work to start with the analytics, and after estimating to submit it and show to the Gramada for them to be aware and to realize that this is a process where the Gramada and the city mayor take part. That's what I would like you to support further on. That's about the recovery of the municipalities. The Gramada and our national Gramadization, so to speak. And I'm aware that together with us we have international partners that also support us, and they help us through the number of the international institutions and municipalities as well. And that I would like to thank immediately to our partners GIZ that help us in this idea and in this skeleton of concerns, where we work together and deliberate jointly a number of other agendas related to the UNDP and EU initiatives, and they do support us at a number of measures, and they facilitate to the implementation of these steps. We thanks to Yuri, were acknowledged with the little grants, and for instance at that I would like to give an example of a little solar panel in a hospital that has a capacity of 32 kilowatt, and we set it up, estimated its capacity, and I, as a city mayor, and the members of the local parliament were there, and we estimated universal, or so to say, the comprehensive effect. We calculated the impact of this initiative on economy, ecology, and we got to the understanding that it's indeed very important. And the next step is after having examined well, the values of this project, we modeled and planned for this year 12 million and plus 6.5 million for water canal. That's another municipal enterprise that handles water supply. But for solar stations, we set up 6 million for water canal. And for school number 6, that's a new a module for 2 million hryvnia. And this school works with a pool that will secure performance of, sorry, that's not the school, that's a kindergarten, and this kindergarten with a pool will perform efficiently, having its pool in proper condition. You understand that when the solar activities do not work, and when it goes about the current draft that will allow to continue what we have started, and today at the session at the local parliament we decided to allocate 2 million hryvnia to each of 2 schools which we target, and we decided that we first need to set up this module, and then we should have some understanding of what the impact will be. And we have been convinced already after seeing the results that it's all quite efficient. And
the second thing I would like to say, today, as I discussed with Andriy, I went to England, I have attended the big forum. I would like to say, however, we have discussed, there are pictures, myself and Mr. Johnson. I would like to say another thing. What's necessary today, I would like to request my partners. I would like to thank very interesting project, the Energy Efficiency Fund, individual heating points. We have examined with our experts and those who have arrived that this generates the highest effect. We would like to concentrate on it, including our finance and also some also management things. We have built 2 heating points nowadays. We would like several more and evaluate and see the effect. Later on, together with you, with the fund, with our financial resources, what is mostly important, condominium associations. Mainly with condominium associations, we would like to involve the people. Those are important social aspects. And there is the greatest effect. For the people, it helps to feel the economy money-wise. I request the fund and the club, shall we implement 1 or 2 projects jointly, and then we shall work on our own, as we do it now on the solar farms. And the third position, Yuri as a manager and myself, we are interested in the heating pump. We have heard a lot of it. We can also feel, as you said before, it's efficient. Theoretically, everybody knows, we understand, and we are aware. I was demonstrated the heating pumps in Germany. Yet there was a phrase from them. Also, you discussed cogeneration. There was a phrase. Germans have expressed, I have remembered that, and I still have it for myself. Theoretically, that concept has existed for long ago, 7, 8, 10 years. Why it was not installed? They say, well, we have no economic benefits. They have concentrated and they are more successfully working on the cogeneration. Therefore, gas very important to them and so on. In reality, actually, the heating pumps we would like also to install. We would like to evaluate them and move forward in that direction as well. I would like to thank you, Andrei, for the opportunity to tell what we did, what we do. Also would like to thank for the model that you have successfully proposed. Also the international partners. A successful civic organization, Ecoclub. It's not advertising. Actually, we can see and we can implement our own resources at the municipal level. Thank you for attention indeed. Also would like to say that our city in the month of March, before 6th of April, we have not been in occupation, yet we were surrounded. Because the enemy came from Andai, in the evening on 25th, the city was full of block posts. Everybody had firearms. People found the firearms. And we had a situation. They were on the perimeter of our city. And then the air alerts were not national, have not been national. They were provided by local government. So I switched on personally to hear the air alerts. This was information with mayors of the communities. They had the observation points, so they have installed the artillery, the MLRS, and we had it on, the air alert on. Before the war, we made it on solar panels, the system of air alert on solar panels. We had no electricity, yet I had 2 suitcases, not myself personally, but the guy who was responsible. He was following me with 2 suitcases every time. Everybody were telling that maybe it's a secret weapon in those 2 suitcases. It was a joke, and they had it on and off. Now we are improving it, yet it works on solar panel, and it was winter time. Well, not very loud, it was not sufficient, yet it was very silent, because people were inside the houses, nothing worked, and yet we had the system of air alert. So we have lived that month in the basements, sometimes going out. By the signal, everybody descended to the basements, and this saved a lot of lives, because we had a lot of artillery. 300 buildings were damaged, and also missile attacks took place in the first week. During the first week, on 3rd and 7th of March, we had up to 25 people killed due to the shelling. Yet the system worked. Thank you very much indeed. I really hope this is not obvious to me. The advantage just of solar power will not have to be used in such a way, as I hope. We still have a little bit of time, like 20 minutes for Q&A. So colleagues here in the room as well as online are thinking of it. I have a question we asked to Olena before, and we are working in that direction, and we can see some opportunities. Our organization has developed dozens of packages of design documentation. It's not really cost estimate documentation. This is rather a feasibility study as well as design documents. Also, as we have studied, there are quite many questions from the point of local governments. Won't we violate anything if we install it on the schools and hospitals or other similar matters? How to get connected? So we had a proposal to make some kind of package of template documentation from the perspective of the central government, of how to develop and how to implement such projects, that there are less doubts and fewer questions locally in the communities. And this can be called to create incentive conditions, stimulating conditions for the people who take decisions locally, for the elected officials who vote or don't vote, for allocating funds or taking particular decisions. So the question to everybody, who prevents it and what stimulating conditions are necessary that those projects are decided on as soon as possible and implemented as soon as possible. The 0 point is access to finance. I don't know whether in this circle we can really influence. Yet maybe there are the other things that we might understand and develop some approaches towards, such as development of the template documentation of how to implement the solar power plants, at least on public buildings. I believe that in Ukraine there are lots of skeptics who don't believe in technology. I'm really happy that we have such progressive mayors who trusted the technology and began actively implementing in the communities, and what is more important, they are telling the other people who are listening to us. I believe that today's broadcasting will help the other mayors to make the same projects in their regions and will make them energy independent. In principle, as I said before, I've been involved for 10 years. 14 years in power sector and 10 in the renewable. And we keep telling that those technologies nowadays are not as expensive as you may think. They are accessible, affordable, they are necessary. In the situation of Ukraine, without such a technology, it will be hard for us to win on the energy front. Therefore, I would like to thank the mayors as well as the Ecoclub for inviting the right people to such events. Also in Ukraine, we need fewer skeptics and more people who believe in the technologies, and it will really work. I would like to add, indeed, we had 2 or 3 meetings with Ecoclub. We have been inspired with the idea to create a sets of template documentations and the template hospitals and kindergartens, and that typical questions to accumulate the positive experience of all the solutions. And in this case, the negative experience is also valuable. The problems that you encountered, we also would like to stockpile them to find the answers and to understand where we can answer the question, where to make a request and receive clear proposals whenever we need to improve anything in our sub-laws and bylaws, as well as by the regulating agency, that those projects on the legislative, technological level, technical, technological, legislative, would be resolved much faster. And also that we really stockpile the synergy experience, that we really support. We shall actively cooperate, and we expect from you also the template designs, and we shall develop the roadmap, how we can faster pass that why, making the template designs. And also another initiative, maybe it's too early, yet in the State Energy Efficiency Agency there is another fund of decarbonization. It may start working from the beginning of next year. This fund is created by the principle pollutant pays. In the fund, they will have the tax from the emissions of CO2, and those money will be used exactly for energy efficiency projects. First of all, energy efficiency in the industry as well as buildings. So we expect we develop the sub-laws and bylaws, and we expect this fund to start operating. Then we shall invite the projects. And for this fund, it's also necessary to create the basis of template projects that can be proposed, template designs that could be proposed to solve certain issues. First of all, the projects based on renewables. Also, we have spoken about 1911D, the prosumers. Actually, after the law was approved, they will develop the sub-laws and bylaws, yet they will sign details. And here we need to stockpile, and we need to know the negative things, that we give the right signal to the developers, the Ministry of Energy, the regulator, so that the preventers well in advance as the signals, that we don't miss some commas in the sentences that will afterwards create serious obstacles. Such a synergy on such points, by the way, I'm a practitioner, I like the practical, I don't like to speak, I like Q&A rather than speeches, I like things more specific. People speak of PR, yet I dislike, and this is not about PR, this is promotion. Those are answers to specific questions. Because for me, as civil servant, I like the experience. From the local level, there is lack of questions, there is lack of requests. I could answer on my workplace. Sometimes I could work 12 hours a day and more. Thank you for this site, for this platform, and for cooperation. We keep working. I would like to support Andrei in the question he asked. You have supported and maybe also answered that we shall sign the law. It will be available. Quite many people are waiting for it, those who are interested. However, it's the right thing. There may be quite a lot of unclear things. This must be regulated and prescribed. When now we implement a number of projects, they are accepted. Is a manual regime using the reputation of the mayor with the regional power supply company or power distribution company, yet it's not prescribed by the law. When we reach more powerful 150 to 100 kilowatt power plants, there will be questions for sure, and I will not be able to solve them. Therefore, it's important what Andrei said before. This is a practical question which has to be quickly and operationally resolved. More questions in the room, if I may. I would like to thank the organizers for the wonderful discussion. There are two questions to the speakers. First, the cities and condominium associations, that's right. There is concentration of people, yet Ukraine is agricultural. And we heard from Yuli that the fight of bioenergy, the destiny of bioenergy in general is small. The government needs to stimulate development of bioenergy. Moreover, Ukraine has positive cases, in particular, in Khmelnytsky region, Teofipol, they have good synergy of the sugar mill, biogas station. This is a place where the power sector and the environmental protection find good synergy, because production of bioenergy helps to recycle the wastes of cattle farming. Another thing is, we have received the topic that this is a threat to the food security. However, this is not really fair. Simply, regretfully, why they process little bioenergy? Because we sell the commodity, we don't process it. The question is to the speakers. How does the government stimulate? Isn't it worthwhile to increase the share of stimulation? Because this is energy independence of communities. Rural communities. That's the first thing. And secondly, very briefly, Ukrainian alcohol, state-owned company. It's of the capacity they have, they are ready to produce biofuel. Yet, for 10 years, there is unprimable problem. Maybe someone is interested, vested interest. Let us do it with the public at the level of the government as well. Maybe we can raise it, and maybe it will be good in the restoration period after the victory. I would like to make a comment about your questions and the right statements. About the bioenergy, I agree with you. My activity was focused on bioenergy, because in solar and wind we can see a good trend. Those advantages in the bioenergy unlike solar and wind, that it may operate regardless of weather conditions, which is important. It may balance the solar and wind, which is important, and also it creates more jobs. It creates more multiplication effect. Therefore, the bioenergy, as I believe, for Ukraine is important, is a must-have. What are the incentives these days? Yes, there is a green tariff for bioenergy. Also, in October 2021, the law was approved on biomethane, which opens another niche that we could produce also such a product as biomethane, which is really the same as natural gas. Also, there is draft legislation in the parliament, which makes it possible to develop the energy crops that may be produced on the marginal land, not unsuitable for agricultural crops. I call them all of the intrusions, that this is food security. I believe that those are the intrusions of uninterested partners who have attacked us these days, that we don't develop this technology, because the more we develop the renewables, the less we depend on traditional, and we shall destroy the economy, those countries who operate on traditional energy. The last thing I would like to add, those draft laws about energy crops were registered by Parliament, and we shall work on having them approved as soon as possible. And by ethanol, there are relevant draft laws. The question is, I personally support, yet there are a lot of skeptics who actually say that this may damage the engines, damage something else. I believe that this makes it impossible to approve it as soon as possible, and those technologies to be used and to replace traditional crude oil as well as petroleum products. Shall we collect all of the ideas until I will give the floor to everybody to speak? Sergei Koshiruk, greetings from the Association of Energy Efficiency, to our partners from Ecoclub, as well as distinguished participants and the mayors and all participants. I have some information in the topic of our discussion and the request. First of all, it's necessary to say that we have to keep pace with European trends. As you may know, European Green Deal has the point of application via communities. Everything what takes place on the front line of that process of the energy transition takes place in the communities. We hear some elements that take place. Yet, strategically, it's important to look into development of communities from the perspective of green restoration, the green transition, the transformation, whatever we call it. And that green standard of buildings, the green standard of cities, that a few in Europe, yet we can see in China, the big cities moving to that standard. In the Association of Energy Efficient Cities, with communities, we do our best to make such a method municipal energy plans, refusals from natural gas while generating heat and electricity, and transition to renewable sources is a sector of consumption, heating pumps combined with solar farms. In May of last year, European Parliament approved the plan Repower EU, which commits to install the rooftop solar farms, also refusal from combustion boilers in the heat supply and cold supply, chilling machinery. We have to follow such things and we prepare such plans. I believe that we may move to that not by the pilot buildings. We can have a plan within 5-year period to make general transition for public buildings and residential buildings. With that, the preliminary estimates how much money is needed for that makes it possible to understand that we may propose, and this is a request, to have a question discussed, that we enable the communities to receive the economic benefits from a reduction of emissions of greenhouse gases. Nowadays, Ukraine, as I know, Switzerland will receive from the EU in the reduction of greenhouse gases, a request to develop the methodologies that would allow the communities to receive the economic benefit and also to return the investment they will use for the sector of greenhouses, green blocks, and green cities. From our part, we are ready to help in that. Another possible source, also I'm looking at Yuri, when we make such a transition, we shall refuse from consumption of natural gas. Is repower, this is a key thing. And that reduction of consumption of natural gas, it can be used for other needs, for their own needs, it can be sold outside. And one may receive another financial opportunity to direct part of the funds into the communities who are supporting it. So the request is to keep working in this direction. I would like to request kindly to make your formulation brief. Professor Teleshun, I would like to focus your attention. There are 4 areas in the general discussion. First is efficient governance, by the government. This is a recommendation referring to the central government, the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry of Territories, the Ministry of Energy to develop the unified concept of energy security and the conditions of the war. It's missing these days, and this was testified by the leaders of the European Commission, who has provided the money 3 months ago. I refer to the central government and presidential office to work on the recommendations to make the registry of the problems that exist at the level of the local communities and the associations of local governments and local communities. First, I would like to reiterate there is an attempt to make the registry of the problems, what to finance, how to finance, and the results of the financing, that there is no corruption, as head of the European Commission said, not to create new Ukrainian oligarchs. Another question is what are the problems, how to study that the problems are not negative and the money is not wasted, and what is the function of the state. This is the key thing for the state: unified rules, arbitration, and the use of funds. And this is the same for local government. The second question is cooperation of local governments, dear mayors, as well as the central government. There is a big problem about implementation of energy things. By estimate of European Commission, 79% is the responsibility of local governments. They are twisting in this situation. We dislike it, yet we can tell the truth. By estimates of one of the special services of one of the NATO countries, the winter has demonstrated that the urban residents and citizens with support of the government had to cope on their own. And this was felt by the condominium association with individual heating points. They do exist, but there is no power. They do exist for 100,000 and there is no power. This would also help if the taxes are reduced, financial component can be used based on that. There is second point to create a common registry of the investment plans between the local governments and the state, not to pulling from one to another. Not to compete, but to create a unified cadastre, to involve the civic sector that will help to control and the international partners to participate in the investment. Nowadays, by estimates of the border service, all of the owners of energy holding companies in Ukraine, 99 of them are located abroad, are living abroad. That's obvious. The third question, the civic sector. The civic sector is participation of the expertise. The money is allocated for expertise. I'm telling to colleagues of European Parliament, they have drawn their attention. They don't understand who represents Ukraine in the civic sector in the international platform. Please look into the document of European commissioners. They say, well, Ukrainians, you are going abroad and we appreciate you, but what function do you carry? Whom do you represent? In the civic sector, the law on the order must be introduced. The first one is technological. You have mentioned what technology is best during the war and what is more useful. Because in the year 2014, the war started for the shale gas. and it was in the doctrine in Russia to stop, to prevent production of shale gas in Ukraine. And the environmental component, the question is what is good for the economy, what is good for the society, what is good for the environment, and finally, what will help Ukraine to exist in a stable fashion, and this year will decide. We are pressed for time in terms of the questions. So we shall have 2 sessions where we shall tell in more detail about our experience and particular facts and numbers. I hope there will be an opportunity to ask the questions and to hear the answers. The next thing I would like to say, I'm happy to hear the good words and the thanks about the activity. And this is not the purpose of our meeting, because we would like to demonstrate with this event that green restoration began, and this has to be accepted as a true fact, and we need to keep developing. Secondly, we need to tell about our common experience, including negative and positive, so that based on that information, we can move forward better. And the third thing, every minute of our life is the most valuable resource. I would like to thank the speakers allocating such resources that we can hear each other and we can see each other and we can understand each other. Now I kindly request very briefly for everybody to say something to answer those questions, or maybe the comments for the previous ones. I would like to say that we are moving forward. I would like to remind that state energy efficiency of the distribution authority, our main function, in addition to the energy efficiency, is the development of the alternative fuels. All those matters are in the focus of our attention. To every question there is draft legislation. Our job is to promote them. When I spoke of the energy cluster, first of all, I meant the energy cluster on those abandoned alcohol plants that have the infrastructure. They have everything. They need to be pushed forward to understand how to do it. A very good idea, very appropriate. Also distributed power generation, prosumers, highly efficient small cogeneration, the use of biofuel. Very appropriately reminded by Yuri, the biomethane. In Ukraine, there is first biomethane plant. You may imagine we are producing gas identical to natural, and so that biomethane plant is connected to the grid, and it's not possible to differentiate those gases. Actually, we spoke to Germans; they are ready to buy that biomethane at a double price compared to natural gas. This is the answer. Thank you.
I would like to briefly comment on the questions on finance. And generally speaking, accounting that for the recovery of Ukraine, you have a need in sufficient resources. I would like to say that a need in such workshops is utter, since the local remotas will this way be able to use the local instruments to do progress in this respect. For the green bonds, the entire market makes over $3 billion. The Ukrainian success cases have witnessed progress as well, and the green bonds for the local self-governance authorities is one of the tools to raise money for the projects which we touch upon in our talks with the local self-governance authorities. This is one of the focal points to discuss, and probably for finance we need standalone sessions, and this is some ultimate mandate to discuss for upcoming sessions and other events. Thank you very much for an opportunity. Thanks. For that, I would like to bring some concluding remarks, saying that energy efficiency is all about the security of our country. And I'm indeed very delighted that these activities have gone in line with the priorities of the government, and this also gives hope to the Ukrainian people, since hope is something that will make even a stone melt down. For being independent, energy efficiency is a key, since otherwise someone will dictate conditions and raise tariffs, and will have to replenish their pockets with these expenses which our families have to encounter. And in that, I would like to say that our families will need to spend more. And let's say that the Chernihiv Oblast is one of the platforms where we have tested and tried it all. So today we need to go further on, and today we will start this initiative, and we will set up a thermal pump. And that a new speaker would like to say that he would like to extend his gratitude to Professor in the state structure and self-administration. When we speak about the response of the municipal participants for the tram lines, 5 years of credit holidays, and the European Investment Banks is there to offer its proposal. The Agency for Recovery will take on the majority of funding to its pocket, and I would like to say that for reasonable use of earmarked credit funds among them as well, we need to look into how to approach the same kindergartens, and that's something what we started yet back last year, and that's what we are to bring to an end now. Today we have 8 kindergartens behind us for the moment, even though our plan initially was to cover 6 kindergartens. So this means that we can be absolutely serious about carrying out synergy on the whole, and for the recovery we need to find some market to sell excess electricity. If the law envisages such a possibility, since today, for instance, we're looking into the projects where there will be no excessive electricity due to GNN solar panels, since it's not beneficial for us, it's not an advantage for the Ukrainian, it brings no asset. And when the situation will turn differently, then probably we will buy more. Well, at that I wouldn't touch tariffs, since I said that I will support the Vodokanal, that's a municipal enterprise in water supply, that's where we speak about the so-called water funds. For your understanding, for a month we do not stick in gap of tariffs up to 200, even not 20, but 200 million Ukrainian hryvnia. Where we face a deficit of 200 Ukrainian million, it says that there is a deficit in pumps, and once we set up pumps, this will not resolve the problem, since the gap in tariffs was there, and we will need to wait till Oblenergo will compensate to Oblenergos, and there will be blackouts. And for waste management, we do not need to let them lag behind in this perspective, and waste fields, they today well, dig into the ground the waste which can be recycled. And when I talked to the minister about these endeavors, he said that too many things have been undone, and we have certain elaborations. So we insisted on that, and there is a proposal, and we expect that the next week there will be people eager to implement all that, but without the governmental support and compensation, like the pattern is in Europe, nothing good will come out of this initiative in Ukraine, since there should be some benefit and asset for an investor in it. Dear friends, to wrap up, I would like to reiterate as follows. To persuade in an ideology and philosophy of the necessity of this initiatives, no one needs to say twice what we have already said before among the target audience. But for the organizational package to involve documents and technical regulations is a second very important step. And another thing, that's where 90% of those present with us will witness that for the successful implementation of these ideas will mean involving resource finance, and this means access to finance will be a key. And once this issue is settled down, all these concerns will be recovered by themselves quite easily and smoothly. You said that when we started projects that was quite a good stimulation showing true impact and positive outcome, but there should be a nuance in it. And for a couple of times I have already addressed the authorities with this agenda. With the Minister of Finance in England, it was much easier to talk and to comment in tandem than it is the case with the Ukrainian Minister of Finance. And when Alexander today touches upon the credits and offer, and when we speak about the policy in Zhytomyr, and when we understand the current interest, this will bring us to another memory of the return of the currency exchange volatility and unstable finances that can play quite a tricky scene with all the stakeholders. Let's agree that we will be very specific, and we will go to the European and global authorities with the support of the Ministry of Finance only, that will serve as a guarantor that for the currency gap and for the green credits there will be some fixed interest, and for credits in euros there should be some governmental guarantee that some exchange rate will keep stable. And when we speak about the volatility, interest does not mean a thing. Well, that's what should be considered. Everyone, thank you very much for your attention, and that I would like to conclude this session. We're slightly beyond the schedule, and that I would like to say that another session is ahead of us, and then conclusions. Metro, the mic is yours. At that, I would like everyone to put up the presentation on screen. So, we start. We'll need to initiate the session and move faster. So this is a common thing for me when we take a while to start it all. So we will do it all as well, we're accustomed to. I'm in charge of the company that is setting up solar substations in the Ukrainian gramatas. If before the session covered organizational, economical and political landscapes, I will touch upon some specifics. That's setting up solar stations across the Ukrainian gramatas. Before I start, I will be very brief about my vision, what we have done and what we intend to do. The second thing is a number of questions to Mykola, Svetlana, and Alexander that will return to us quite soon. And I do believe that we will have more questions from its target audience that is with us today. And at that, I would like to say that PR campaigns were touched slightly. For PR campaign for the activities of Ecoclub and PR for the mayors and gramadas, no one needs it. First of all, we should focus on energy efficiency and supply of electricity and fuels. Everyone is a participant of the war in Ukraine, and we should keep it in our minds. Well, we have soldiers at war, and they do not have a possibility to join us in these conversations. It's not about access for them, it's about the energy security and the energy front line, where we can do at least something. What we do is our contribution to the victory. And that's a very important component to what I wanted to cover. You do some PR, you do some things which we used to do back 10 years ago. That's the way it works. Yes, it works. It helps people in the hospitals to feel themselves secure. Those soldiers which get back to these hospitals can receive immediate help. That's all about us, every one of us. What we do directly across the gramadas, we develop feasibility studies and pre-feasibility studies which allow us to estimate at the first step what should be done, whether it's worthwhile to start this or that facility and what it will cost us. The second step is to go and attend the facility and try some specific resolutions where we offer some technical solutions, equipment, and we reiterated that the Gramota should co-finance this process and it should monitor the surveillance of all that as well. There is a number of projects where we exclusively offer support to each step before commissioning and doing all other works on the facility. For instance, in Zvergal, where the funding is located and we support with our expertise and knowledge in this solutions, which facilities are covered that. These are hospitals, then municipal water supply enterprises. Why are these facilities important? Since hospitals do need electricity. When at school or at home you do not have electricity, you yet need it. For hospitals, it's indeed a critical need, where lack of electricity will cost life. Even a minute of blackout can turn into someone's death. That's why it's indeed essential. When you do not have water for a couple of hours, it's very hard. It's not only about the private residential sector, it's also about all other activities of the city. Let's say everywhere water supply is important equally. And when you look into this map, you will see partnership gramadas, and later you will see another infographics. That's another map where you will find even more dots where we work for the moment. To the end of this year, we expect that following our feasibility studies, we will set up 20 water supply channels. We will also work following our pre-feasibility studies with 10 hospitals, and we plan to build the solar panel that will worth us around 62 million euro. And for the feasibility studies and surveying, so we have more than 30 facilities in our pool. If you have some idea of what facility to support, please come and see me, and we will discuss what can be done in this or that locality. Let's say Baranivka 10 kilowatt, Voznesensk 60 kilowatt, and let's say water canal. And last week, for instance, where we registered altogether 3 hospitals. Today we will speak with representatives of our mothers whether we were successful or not. That's something that we started back before the beginning of the war and yet continue doing now. We work with hospitals in Kolomyia, Chernomorsk, Cherivna, Divnomorsk, and at the beginning it was 150 kilowatt. Today Kremenchuk hospital has 60 kilowatt. Until the end of this year you will see what has been elaborated. We will work out some concrete solutions and some specific examples. Voznesensk that has 50 kilowatt plus minus 40,000 euro with the help of the Norwegian embassy and the local Gramada. That's modernization of the station, and the tariff that we take from the grid is an investment that is divided by electricity, and the payback period before made 9 years, and in June, July, the payback in fact was reached. Today, for instance, through this equipment that we use, we have already reached the payback before the plan, and we wanted to advance the same initiative to Odessa. They felt impact of blackouts and quite an adverse state of things there when there is no electricity. So another station will be built for 300 kilowatt more. The German embassy in Ukraine and the Ukrainian government agreed to start another station at 1.5 billion Ukrainian hryvnia. Then another hospital in Gorenka, Kiev Oblast, Greenpeace in the Central and the Eastern Europe, and with the support of Ecoclub, that's an NGO that offers 56,000 euro as budget for this initiative. And in the beginning of this event there was an announcement made for 1 million euro, and I believe that quite soon you will be able to see auction, and the solution was made that we're persuaded in the efficacy of this initiative. So be prepared. Millions of hryvnia are expected as an investment into it. Solar stations in Zviagel, Zhytomyr and Sum are also expected. Where to have money from? Primarily these are donations from the entire world. We had donations that varied from 1 million, let's say even euro, and etc. European Climate Foundation, grants, Oxfam, the European Commission, and foreign companies. For Zhytomyr, the Czech company transferred equipment for the solar stations in this locality, and the Gramada added finance into it as well. So quite often you will hear some questions whether everything goes seamlessly with the contractors. So far we didn't have any problems with this, which mount and install the equipment. It's clear that soldiers live for the war, and quite often when we agree on a tender with some company and then they inform us that they have changed their minds since someone from their team left for the war. And for the installators, we are, for instance, we order the service of getting connected, let's say inverters, cables, everyone is okay when contractors supply that. Another thing to consider is deficit of smart minds, those who can develop pre-feasibility studies, engineering, design documents, acts, estimates. So this market is empty, and we face true problems with that, and something should be done about it. As a summary, at the war times, solar panels are an additional type of resources generating electricity. There will be cheapening of electricity than diesel generator and the cost of electricity in the grid. Apart from that, we have competitive resources and solutions for the municipal enterprises, where payback makes 5 years, and I recall that for 3 years our state advanced this initiative forward, and we have already managed to succeed. For the freaks or freakology regarding the solar success in Ukraine, no one will say that this is sort of freakology. No way. So, well, 300 applications from grandmothers for setting up solar panels on the roof of hospitals is a success. More than 200 applications have been submitted for setting up some specific equipment at some specific facilities, pumps, solar panels, etc. And hotline for these organizations has been organized. That's me in person that answers this calls. They ask me their focal point for their questions on the nature of this issue, on those who give grants, those who help with implementation of grants. Daily I receive up to 20 calls, in other words I will not be able to do anything at all. But the calls can be even more. Let's say for the moment we are after setting up favorable conditions for municipalities, accessible for affordable credits in the local currency, and insurance of risks, collateralization of risks and credits. So let's say hedging of risks and collateralization of credits. Let's say people at times say that's the first time that they heard the boss and they need some additional info. And at times the quality control of the burden is neither bad nor poor. So for the quality performance, we should probably improve it, but we should just control the way the construction is being done. And for all the projects where we developed cost estimates and engineering design documents, in each project normally project manager will invent a new problem. I do not know how they manage it all, but they are indeed quite craftsmen in it. And when they design a solar station that's absolutely untypical so far, I would like to say that there are too many unwilling to do it. And when you have problems, please contact me. I will share my telephone number with you. Here it comes on a slide. And Mr. Alexander from Zoom. So before coming to questions, I would like to see you. You didn't see it. I want you to see it. So please go ahead.
So we can discuss quite many things, yet it's better to see once. Therefore, I would request to show the video that we present for the first time. This is our video. After that, we shall have a discussion about the problems, and I have quite many questions to you.
Суми Центральна міська лікарня.
Sumy is a
Сучасний
central city
медзаклад, де
hospital,
щорічно
modern
лікують
medical
понад
institution
200
providing
тисяч українців.
treatment to 200,000
Пані
Ukrainians
Валентина – його
annually.
директор.
Valentina
І
is
півтора
the
роки тому
director.
понад усе вона
1.5
боялася
years,
прийти на
she was
роботу
afraid
і
coming
нікого
to
не
work
зустріти.
and not
Я
meeting
кожен раз
anyone.
їдучи на
Every
роботу,
time
думала
going to
тільки
work,
про
I
одне.
thought
І
of one
боялася
thing.
одного, що
I
я
was afraid
приїду
of
і
one thing,
виявиться,
that
що
I
люди
arrive
поїхали.
and
На початку
find
відкритого
people have
російського
left.
вторгнення
In the
Суми були
beginning
в
of
оточенні.
Russian
Це
invasion,
прикордонна
Sumy
область.
was
У місті тривали
surrounded.
вуличні бої.
This is a pre-border area. There
Закінчилися
were
продукти та не
street fights
працювали
in the
аптеки.
city.
Перші кілька днів тільки з Сум виїхали близько
was
80
missing. About
тисяч людей.
80,000 residents
Але
have left the
не
city
пані
in the first
Валентина.
days.
Коли
But not Valentina.
почалась війна, я
When the
зібрала
war
колектив,
began, I brought together the
об'явила про
staff
те, що я
and I have declared
залишаюся.
that I stay.
Залишилась частина хворих із
And some
тих
patients have remained as
селищ
well from the
і сіл і
villages
міст, які були
and
окуповані.
cities and
Людям
towns
просто
that have been
нікуди було
occupied
їхати.
because people
Разом
had
з нею
nowhere to
залишився
go.
майже весь
Along with
персонал.
her,
У
all
найважчі
the
дні
personnel has
відділення
remained. The most
ночували на
difficult
роботі.
days
Лікарня
they
швидко
have
наповнювалася
stayed at work.
пораненими та
The
хворими.
hospital was getting
Запаси
full
ліків
of
та продуктів тут
sick
встигли
people
зробити.
and wounded
А
people.
от
They had a lot of
електроенергію
stock
так не запасти.
of
З
food
нею
and
були
drugs,
проблеми.
yet they had
Коли
problems with
ми були
electricity.
оточені, були ж
When
такі дні, коли
we
в нас
were
не було
surrounded,
зовсім
there were
світла.
days
І
with no
генератор
electricity.
наш,
And
який
our
ми
power
раніше
generator
колись давно отримали.
that we have received a long time ago has solved a lot. Yet there was a question about providing the fuel, which was not delivered into the city. The electricity, the work of reanimation equipment, diagnostic equipment, guarantee of water supply, heating, cooking the food for hundreds of patients. If it disappears, the power generators have no source. And human lives are under the threat. The hospital requires power supply. People cannot wait for the power generators to be on or any other things, or when they repair the substation. After what they experienced, the matter of stability and control of the situation for the doctors is especially important. They remain a pre-border city. Special attention to stability and reliability of power supply. For that purpose, on the roof of the hospitals, they have installed a solar farm. This was supported by civic organization Ecoclub. The money was collected by people in several countries of Europe. People provided as much as they could.
For the installation of solar power at Sumy Hospital, because now there's one hospital that will not stop working if there's a power cut.
My grandfather was Ukrainian, so this is a cause that's quite close to me. When I heard about the work they're doing to put solar panels on hospitals, it seemed like a really great cause because that's critical infrastructure and that builds some sort of resilience against the sort of attacks that are happening there. So I was really glad to help.
Коли побачили, як воно працює, це змінює реальність.
When they saw how it works, it changes reality. This is a pilot project. When you can see it, feel it, understand how it works, look into the cables to understand it's not really rocket science. There is electricity. It really works for the people that they can take such decisions. If renewable sources is the future, is clear to the city government. A few years ago,
Панелі на систему оповіщення тривог.
they have installed solar panels for the air alert. Even with no electricity, people heard of the danger. Now the residents are coming back, companies are getting relocated. This helps people to be confident that what happens in the city is not by chance. This is all predicted. People who have remained are elderly people. They cannot live here unless the city is living. If there are no services, no social support, if their children are not living next to them. The solar farm on the roof of the hospital of Sumy City generate power. $500,000 budget tariff of 2023 that will be saved with solar power within 1 year will be spent for development of the institution. It requires more electricity. There is a growing number of equipment. Anytime one can provide help to people, one will not be afraid that you will not have this capability. This is huge. Rehabilitation is awaiting Alexei. Additional power source on the roof adds to his confidence about himself and his relatives. Of course, I can feel at ease because logistics is provided. Whatever happens, one can normalize it here. Worldwide, it's operational. Of course, we would like such systems to be connected in our country as well. And we shall get back to our work. It is not finished. So, Alexander, top 3. Why are you doing that? As I said before, it's clear that we are all people and we all think about everybody. First of all, we need to think about quality of life, how the people can live. If they don't have such services, they cannot live normal lives. We felt what does it mean to stay with no medical support. Also, that all the doctors would remain, the chief physician would remain. This was also important. And the policy was that children with women will all leave the place. For the men, it was not possible to get onto the bus, just the pension age. All the men have remained in the city. Yet, when the doctors are in the city, we understand that there are lots of pensioners. They will go to hospitals for treatment because people are getting sick. As I made a phone call, if her power generator is sufficient, because there was no fuel. We had a stock of fuel. Indeed, it was limited because we did not know that it will be 6th of April or 6th of May, because for half a year we have had our stock of fuel because there was a big fuel base. It was captured by the Russians. It's 15 kilometers from the city. It was difficult for us to get there, but there was a stock, and we have used it. She tells it's not enough for everything. Could you do the surgical operations in a limited way? On the very first day, the people with the first street fight next to the college, art college, were taken to a hospital. It's 1 kilometer away from the hospital. We had to decide. Therefore, Valentina is telling us that we have to be prepared to any situation. It's obvious that one diesel power generation will not help. And now she has confidence. Why did we start from the hospital? Because this is about health and life. As I said before, the projects do not go smooth. It's not just coming to the city and saying, shall we do it, and everybody does it. No, in reality, even in most progressive cities that want it, there are problems. In some places, the designers are not very good. They don't help us on time or with good quality. Sometimes the power distribution company creates obstacles. It's not easy to find a deal with power distribution company, but connection, place for the meter, a place for the technical device which stops flowing power into the grid. In Zhytomyr, we had such issues. Svetlana, didn't you have the willingness on some day, when for 1.5 months we were doing our best and I was telling, shall we do something? You said, didn't you have the willingness just to abandon it? Shall we abandon? Because whenever we go, there is a problem. Would they like, do you receive any, do you have any inspiration to keep doing? I know that Zhytomyr is progressive, and yet before the full-scale invasion, you declared transition. Yet sometimes those difficulties really affect the decisions. Therefore, could you please tell us your opinion about the difficulties and the inspiration? Good morning. I would like to thank for the invitation. What I would like to say, having in mind this was not the first project of this kind, it seems to us that it was not that fearful as the previous one, yet it was not that smooth. Actually, it began when our initiative was supported and we passed the selection. I brought to my office all the specialists involved in the project, starting from the Department of Economic Development and Finance at the Construction Department. We have discussed the project and we decided that we can implement. When we started the project, it never goes smoothly, but it's important not to stop. And we understand that the designer was not the best and with no experience of similar projects. though the designer was good. Yet nowadays it was a new challenge for the design organizations. With Oblenergo it was not that smooth, and the budget funds, exceptional budget funds, was a different mechanism. And yet we passed the way, and honestly speaking, it was interesting. The project was not hard, yet it was for us implemented for the first time. We had negative experience because several years ago we wanted to create a solar farm for 10 megawatts. We did not pass the approval of the Ministry of Finance. What was the reason? Because the land plot owned by the city was in a different community. In line with budgetary code, we cannot borrow. We could not borrow for the land of another community. There is such a norm, cannot be bypassed. We stopped before we started. We had certain challenge and we could not cope. When this project has emerged, it was interesting for us to pass that way from the beginning till the end. There was no idea, shall we stop or shall we make a break? This gave the team even more inspiration to implement the project. What will be your advice for those who will start? Because everybody will start at some point, because the future belongs to it, whether people want it or not. But what is your advice for first deputy mayor in the village or in the city? In the life of the community is ready to share the experience with smaller communities, to transferring, if you say, template documents. Together with you, we have developed the entire case of project implementation. We're ready to share, telling how great we are, how successfully we did, also sharing the small little commas that we saw on our way. The main thing is the team of supporters that must be in your community. The main thing is the team of supporters must have strategic documents. Then it's easier to work with the donors and with the civic sector, because they can see the documents that the city has, what is implemented, and they have the case of successful implementations. The main thing is also political support, because one could have wonderful specialists. Locally, political support of the MPs is very important, of the elected officials. The main thing is when the elected officials have shown the feasibility studies that was done, they can see the numbers. They don't have a break. Why not? Because numbers are not words. It's difficult to argue with against the numbers. Difficult to operate easy to operate the numbers. When you go to the elected officials, you can show the feasibility statements. Every person with common sense will say yes, because we are patriots of our city and we are patriots of the country. Thank you very much indeed. So, Mikola, shall we be honest? You did not trust me. I came to you in October of the last year and I said, shall we install the solar farm on the hospital? You said, well, what will be there? It will be savings. We shall produce in winter 1,000 from solar, in summer 5,000. You did not trust me. Nowadays, do you trust me? Do you trust the solar energy? Can we establish such a group? Maybe you are wrong. I believed even then, when we were doing it, before the project implementation. However, it was another question, a different question, because about the capacity, 32 kilowatts for the hospital. And this is it does not solve the problem. This is some modeling only. Is it worthwhile? Yet I agreed, because it was your financial resource, frankly speaking. After that, I would like to convince all the colleagues that all of the subsequent projects that we are implementing these days for 20 million hryvnia is a financial resource of our local budget, with no support from outside. Therefore, I would like to say one thing. Svetlana was right. That it's possible to list and be on different fora, have internal beliefs that it's necessary to do it. Yet when the time comes for implementation of certain projects, there are quite many questions from the practical perspective, and the answer can be only given by the deep analysis, in-depth analysis, and specific convincing modeled, small implemented projects. This is what I say. A small station, it was built, it became an example, the demo for the capabilities of implementation of any project. Then we began implementing the project 150 kilowatt of the water utility. That's the first one, also followed by another one about the water utility. Actually, I heard from Svetlana. I would like to thank you. We are on the way to the matters of the design. Actually, for 3 or 4 months, we cannot develop the project. We have money and we have no project. There is Olena here. I was telling her that currently we have the issue. We have the basic design, yet the approval, the connection with the energy system becomes problematic. Successfully implemented small model project for 32 kilowatt, going to the larger and more responsible things. There are serious issues. Nobody wants at the local level to become responsible for not to have a look, not to see, and to do. Therefore, there is an issue. Secondly, I will share another situation. We began implementation of several projects, so kindergartens, schools. Now there is a struggle between the elected officials. Everybody wants to participate, and they want to participate thanks to one presentational and good and well-implemented project. This is what I say. When Svetlana says they have the counterpart, the international partner, it's easier to convince every time. When there are own resources, it's more difficult. Therefore, I would recommend for the beginning, for everybody who starts implementation, to have a partner, a counterpart, an outside donor who will help to bypass certain difficulties from those who take decisions whether to provide money. Moreover, another important thing, nowadays we have modeled and we are working successfully on the solar farms. We need to do it, and we need to have several demo projects. So the Energy Efficiency Fund has left. I don't see them. Individual heating points. Tomorrow we are ready, along with them, to start implementing 1, 2, and 3 individual heating points. I'm convinced. DEMA does not have to convince me about efficiency. Of course, we need to have a DEMA project. And the heating point, I'm ready to invite everyone, ready to invest into that topic, into the city, under conditions of co-financing. I'm wrong. Heating pumps, I mean. Heating pumps, that's what I mean. I was wrong. We are ready to implement that project. We are ready to give the opportunity of co-financing for the heating pumps, the approach to this matter, and also to make a demo and to tell the world what a good idea was that. We shall not take away the bread of the keynote speakers of the next session, which is about heating pumps. So you touched upon a very good topic, that the Ecoclub helped in various ways to co-finance in Zviagel, in Sumy, in Zhytomyr, in other communities, in every particular way. And Zviagel went further, they began to develop that topic. So it was successful, I'm proud. Yet we have a community Ecoclub did nothing for. I would like to ask Mr. Roman from Brody, Deputy Mayor, which has announced the bidding for selection of the supplier for the installer of the water utility for 100 kilowatt. We did not help you, unlike Zviagel. We did not even have a demo station. Yet the community allocated 4 million hryvnia for such a solution. What has motivated you? We understand them, but what about you? Maybe the experience in the local government. So as a personal contact with you, with yourself. For 2 years we have reviewed the situation. we need to install the solar farm on the water intake because we saw the tariffs will grow. And we went through public hearings, all the political turmoil, and we were troubled in every possible way at the tariff setting stage. And this will enable us. We have installed established new tariff, economically feasible, starting from next year. In 2 months, we shall commission the solar farm. And we don't have such a difference in tariff like in Zviagel, 2.5 million per month. This will have a payback. We have zero, maybe even plus. We are at break-even or even in the surplus. That strategic vision of the management and of the governance of the municipality. I would like to invite those to help to help those progressive communities, because here at least you don't have to overcome the political problem when you have to break through somebody's unwillingness. It's not easy to implement a project, but when you have to convince the leadership that you have to do that, it becomes even too difficult. But thanks to you, we change the reality. It looks like that. This is important. So, Svetlana, I have a question to you. And to City of Sumy as well. We had the disputes. Not everything went smoothly. We came to the critical points, even to the possibility of stopping. In Zhytomyr, there was one situation, in Sumy, a different one. Yet, nevertheless, it was not easy. I would like to tell honestly about your experience of cooperation with Ecoclub. What would you like to take with you from that experience you have gained, and what you do different? For sure, the expert support. During the project implementation, sometimes we cannot have specialists who are the basis in the understanding of support because the project is new to us. What I would not like to remember, probably nothing, because anyway, things go smoothly when there are relations between the government, central government, local government, and civic sector. We pass the way of formulation of mutual relations. It is not yet finished. We are just forming it. Therefore, there are differences. Only during communications we can solve them. Therefore, I invite Ecoclub to continue implementing projects in Zhytomyr. I believe that the first experience was not very smooth. Yes, it was a success. Finally, the solar farm does work. The scheme that was selected, East-West, is most acceptable rather than classical. I would like to thank for it, and I would like to invite you to Zhytomyr. Thank you for your question. I would like to remember the year 2015 when we went to the city of Lutsk, when we heard of that building that was mentioned when individual heating point was established, was installed, with full renovation, with a lot of renovation. We went to have a look with a big, serious delegation, representatives of the Department of Infrastructure, Finance, Environmental Protection. We all went, looked at it, spoke to the mayor. He is not with us, regretfully, anymore. And the experts. Why did we go? Just to have a look, not to make any mistakes, just to receive the experience that we don't make unnecessary steps, to save money and resources and capacity. The same I can tell about you. From cooperation with you and your staff was what are the benefits of our staff, that we did not have to learn on our own mistakes. We have received, first of all, the advice from the beginning. We have received the feasibility study. We have discussed everything. You told us about the experience. You discussed the projects you have accomplished and how we should do our own projects. And the support, at the beginning of the support, as well as the final part. And finally, we have spoke to you whether we can increase the number of panels, the solar panels. Your experts told us, probably not. Not at the moment, because if you have excessive electric power, we need to think what to do with it. if there is a law 1911, right? If there is the one, that's superb. And then not make extra because efficiency will not be as good as today, because we shall spend more money that we can use for another institution. We are working. That's a Children's Hospital of Saint Zinaida, Inakievsky facility, as well as our utility company of electrical public transport for 6 megawatt. We are using your experience. Speaking of experience with Ecoclub, maybe there were some also difficulties during implementation of the first project. We have implementing with another partner. We are implementing the second project, not second hospital, also solar farm. Yet there we don't have a problem because we are educated. As the city, we can travel with the help of international partners and civic organizations. We can learn from leading experience of European countries. Yet, when we come back, we have a look and we understand that the conditions for the municipalities are different. Those in Ukraine, those in Europe are in the different conditions. Yet, we can share our experience with Ukrainian municipalities. When you have positive experience, we can demonstrate when they come, because the biggest obstacle to implement things is our fears. What if I fail? What if I am fired because I could not manage? Those are basic fears. When we are visited from other municipalities, the energy managers say, look at it and they understand that nothing is impossible if they are willing to accomplish. When we say the legislative framework is no good, I believe that it's good enough. We need to read it carefully. Everything can be successful, and everybody helps, even in the situation with a regional power distribution company. So they have supported us. And yet it was difficult. And instead of comma, we have now the period in project implementation as it was finalized. And the grant component that we are grateful for. I invite you to the questions, both in the room as well as online. 100 plus participants, also active discussions on the chat to ask what is of interest. Please ask that. Maybe you have difficult questions, that those are most interesting. Dear colleagues, it's very important. We need to concentrate, as we speak of Ecoclub. Indeed, nowadays we have other counterparts, as Svetlana said before. And today I would like to quote good examples and to quote that as we have cooperated for quite many years, we implemented the project for €2.5 million with them. NAFCO, GIZ, of course, Vadim Litvin, who helped us before implementing on water utility. We made energy audit of the water utility. We have appreciated, estimated all the risks, the main problems, but this was and is our counterpart in that topic. There for school number 4, energy efficiency, and a number of the UNDP €800,000. Also, we are implementing. There are quite many other international counterparts. I'm not saying this is all very good. Having cooperation with Ecoclub and GIZ, we find, while working with ones, we are working with find other partners, which helps to successfully implement and help implementing the projects. Do you have any questions? A simple question. Do you plan any programs of support of building the solar farms on the residential homes? I can tell you the approach to such matters. Yuri is a manager. We started from the advice, and Dima was coming to us, and they have created, being on such a nice meeting, the mayor's deal. We have discussed the matter of energy plans. before implementing all those projects, we have reflected that in the strategic plan of energy efficiency of the city. We have compiled the plan, there are government requirements, recommendations, and we have prepared such a plan because that plan makes it possible for us to use the funds in the treasury, even passing the money through the treasury. With no such energy plan and such a program, we could not use the funds in the treasury because of the resolution 590. Therefore, it's necessary to have the planned approach, the strategic vision, laying down the principle into some prospective documents is a necessary precondition these days. I believe it's not only because it's resolution 590, also strategic thinking, strategic vision of our issues, and well-planned implementation. In Zviagel, we develop the program of support for 2030 for renewable sources, and there will be some support. More questions? Maybe online? Not yet. So, a comment or a question? Good morning, dear colleagues. Yuri Savage, head of the department of Zviagel City Hall. We are responsible for involving international TA, also projects on all directions, not only energy efficiency, but inter alia, we are involved in development of energy efficiency in the community. I have some proposals. Mr. Yuri, the representative of the government entities, about the general matters that were raised as we discussed the solar power that could have helped the fast growth and implementation of such projects in the community. Having in mind what Dmitry said before, 300 communities applied to them with their questionnaires that they could be helped with energy efficiency, renewable sources in the communities. It's important, as Yuri has announced, that the draft law was approved, which is being signed by the President, 9011D. There are two things I would like to request about. I would like to request a support. To the extent possible, we do understand, even when the President signs the draft legislation, there are quite many sub-laws and bylaws to be approved that it is implemented. We have certain practice. So the secondary legislation takes years to develop in order to complete the process as soon as possible, so that you can also use all the advantages of that draft legislation, which is really important. Also, there are other things that deserve attention. As Olena said before, that they will sign details when they develop the secondary legislation. We need to focus our attention to develop some cases, the technical ones, how to implement best. And there can be also negative things. I hope they will be taken into account. And yet I would like to insist on the administration that the processes of that mechanism of net billing in the legislation, that mechanism of the self-manufacturing is as simple as possible, that we don't have to, for every station, to say a budget station provide 10 kilowatts, because usually those are small facilities, except for water utilities and hospitals. Otherwise, it's technically not possible to have a big station, or vice versa. When there are constraints that we can sell not more than 50% of the limit installed capacity, this will constrain. But this is normal, that we don't have to hire any additional accountant who will administer that mechanism of mutual offsets of what is given to the grid and what will be purchased from the grid. Another question, as Dmitry said before, one of the questions, one of the problems that we have now is that yes, indeed, the companies who install their stations are numerous. However, we concentrated by 90% exclusively on the facilities that were private. Those were private households or some business entities not requiring the design and cost estimate documentation, and also expert evaluations. There are quite many companies ready to install the solar farms, yet in the budget, we are working in the budgetary sphere. According to the law, we need to develop first the design and cost estimate documentation, also the urban development constraints, also expert evaluations, all the list of documents for any capital construction and capital reconstruction, and we lack specialists having the knowledge and also the certificates and also the permits to develop such things. Maybe it's worthwhile at the level of the government to introduce additional education of the designers, saying that we have the prospect. Just 300 communities, they came to the club. In 1 year, there will be 1,300 communities, plus the others, other municipal institutions of the oblast level, that we have well-trained designers who will understand and have template solutions for implementation. It will move faster. Establishing the farm for 100 kilowatt is 3 to 4 weeks, and yet all the documentation will take 3 to 4 months. And the last thing, the last recommendation from our experience. When I spoke to our colleagues and those calling from other communities, they are concentrating on schools. Schools. Of course, with approval of the draft legislation, when generation does not coincide with consumption, will be resolved. Yet, having such explanatory work, what are the priorities? At least from the economic perspective, we understand that there is consumption, continuous consumption, as our colleagues from SUME mentioned. We have selected water utilities and hospitals with continuous consumption. Whatever we generate, we can consume. That the communities would understand this, because mostly those it will be their funds, maybe the donor funds. Therefore, at the level of the government, we need to do the explanatory work, that those facilities have economic priorities. Of course, there is social component and so on. It's important here. Sometimes I forget to say that, because I have mentioned that 5 times a day. It's good you have quoted that. I can see a question from the chat. There is a question from chat. A question to the speaker: how to widespread the practice of solar farms for the critical facilities in the communities? What are the systemic barriers in such a way? Wasn't this discussed? Just Yuri has repeated the critical infrastructure is of course a priority, because when they asked why, because in the hospitals this is life of people. The water utility is a tariff policy, and inability to balance it with economic cost and installation capability, and a lot of using a lot of consumption of electricity, high consumption level. The preschool educational institutions with continuous use of electricity. Nowadays we have quite many projects interested to be implemented in the high schools, as Yuri said before. However, economically we were saying it's not most beneficial. Even we did not denied many requests. Therefore, there was a political discrepancy. This must be agreed on the economic level. It's not even the difficult economics. It's easy to estimate. The city leaders are analyzing it, then they decide whether we do the project. Promotion, a small project, as I said before, it serves as an example for everybody else, for the larger projects. I would like to add that in order to have successful implementation, first we need to formulate 3 success stories that we could promote via the Association of Cities, Association of amalgamated communities, that the communities will see that there is successful success story of implementation. There is a mechanism, there is a phone number of people to seek the advice. They will receive the advice or support. Novigrad is working in this direction, which is the same as Zvagel. We have educational tours from as a community. We are happy to share the experience because the topic of energy efficiency, as I believe, is difficult in the communications with the public. It is difficult because it's not easy for understanding for ordinary citizens. Therefore, at the level of the government, we need the awareness. The awareness must be simpler, like at the level of cities, both the government level and city level. It's easier to explain people the road, why there is a square, there is a road, there is a park, they visit it regularly, and they believe it's easier. When we speak of critical infrastructure, like solar farms, water utilities, combined heat and power plants, people will feel it when it doesn't work. People never remember the water utility and the heating utility unless it stops working. When it does, people complain to the government because it requires a lot of financial resources. Those are expensive projects. The mayor of Zviagir was telling us that today we face a problem of LIBOR, Euribor loan resources. It was 4.5%. It was a small resource. We have counted, we had cross-approved from the Ministry of Finance. Its payback period is clear. Now the rates are 9 to 10% because European rates have increased. We understand this as well. Finding in the community such resources, we understand the tariff policy, we understand it's a sensitive policy. Yet, we believe we need to be supported because it's difficult for us in those processes we cannot influence. And we don't really influence. We can find the difference in the tariffs when there is a resource to finance the water utility. When we say that we took the commitment and the government along with us took the commitment and we took it for 4 to 5%, now we have 10. It's clear. Please hear us. Please have a good understanding. Another focus I would like to make. Those who ask a question must tell. I believe the best approach is modeling of small projects to make it demonstrational. With my examples, if I would like individual heating point, I need to make a demo. When we say heating pump, I would like to make a demo. Then I will move forward. Unless I do it, it's difficult for me to convince anyone virtually. More questions? It's not a question, it's a small comment towards about the comments discussed by Yuri about the sub-laws and bylaws. How to approve them faster. Any right law and can be spoiled by the secondary legislation or delayed or to prevent the ideas from implementation. Therefore, this will receive special attention. If you take that army of revival, it is growing as this, and this will help us that this is approved as soon as possible. About all the bureaucratization things, that this idea will be implemented as soon as possible, that with those things we need to explain how to implement the project. We can work together with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, which shows good results. And what about the net billing? This draft legislation about the net billing, along with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, it can be launched to make it automated. You install the station, you have the meter, that's it. You open the smartphone and you look what was produced, what was consumed, what was supplied into the grid. Immediately you will have the money on the bank account in the energy distribution company. Then we share this money with them and take away your profit. No specialized accountants, no additional paperwork. That's cool. I would like to summarize, if I may. The first thing, renewable energy today is about security. Of course, it's good to have the savings, yet not. And why it works? Because this is about security. Unloading the network, providing the energy source, it's critical to understand that you help us to become secure. Renewable energy is deconcentrated, One cannot break one cable and cut off the region from energy supply. Of course, we cannot just make it in all the farmlands of Ukraine just to cover it with solar farms. But of course, we have to do it whenever feasible. There is a discussion how to simplify the process. Please go the level up. We are doing this now. We have 3 mayors who have implemented and 3 projects in the pipeline. This is just one small Ecoclub. There are quite many other initiatives that move those processes. It means we can do it today, and we do it, and we show in practice it really works. Therefore, taking decisions in favor of renewable sources, the solar plants, heating pumps, wind, bioenergy, or not to do it, this is rhetorical. We need to move in that direction for a number of reasons. Of course, if we can do it from a smartphone, this will simplify the process. Yet, this can be done as early as today. And thirdly, I would like to wish all of us the inspiration, because it will help us for 20 years. And we don't have to stop on what we have achieved. I'm really happy that those communities where we started doing things began to develop it on their own, including Zviagel, Sumy, Zhytomyr, Brody, Kremenchuk, Rivne, Dubno, Ovruch, Chernomorsk, Zhmerinka, in Stranskapasy, I don't remember. All those communities where we do one project and they can see it in kilowatts. 1 kilowatt, another kilowatt, and those are 3 kilowatts. And there is no question whether to move forward. So let us all together make our country energy independent. As the colleagues, I invite you to coffee. We have a break for 20 minutes. And our final